Everyone, it's Kelly here, and today what we're going to be talking about is painting white. So as you can see, we've just got a simple white picture set up, and I've already got my drawing placed on the panel here, and so I'll be talking about how to appropriately judge the values when you're painting a white object in particular, and also judging the right temperature. So the first thing that you want to try to figure out is the white a warm white or a cool white? And so if you do have a color wheel like this one, I would highly recommend looking at the tint side of the color wheel, which is the colors, the specific hues mixed with white, and going, from the most pure version of the color to more and more white on the scale. White mixed in, I would say this particular picture is somewhere between orange, yellow, and yellow. That would be, the closest match. I would say probably orange, yellow. And then also it can be helpful too, just to see, we've got this background here, and I would say its color family, of course, is primarily in the blue-green. And you could see also by checking on a color chart or color wheel like this, just how much it simplifies it for you as to how much pure color is in that mix and how much white is in this mixture in the background. Okay? So that is the first thing I want to think about before I actually start painting. That way I don't get lost in my color mixing. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is start to mix up that background color. And so when I was looking at the background color and the value, it looks like the primary color family is in blue-green. That's the one that matches the closest. And then the value of it ranges, I would say, from this value here, number 3. So this is all the color mixed with white, and then some on the tabletop plane would be in these two values here. So knowing that I'm looking for a blue-green with white, then I know I'm going to start with the blue on my palette, which has more green, more of a turquoise or green base to it, which in this case is this azure blue here. And you can kind of, you can also double check that to see, oh, okay, I think that needs, a little touch more yellow. And if it's a cooler, a cool blue-green, then you want to use your cooler yellow, which I need more out of, to find that color mix. So you can really use, this color wheel to help you quite a bit, not only just with color family, but also with judging the value as well. So just to show you there. And we're pretty much spot on, and it was just 2 colors plus white. So I'm going to just kind of loosely mass that in. And obviously there are, a little more complexity to it than that. As far as there's a pattern on here, and then we do have a shadow version, which would be a darker color. But using that color wheel can really help you avoid a lot of time mixing, or just, being unsure of, is that a warm blue? Is it a cool blue? Is it blue-green? Or is it just, middle of the road blue? So when you hold that color wheel up next to the object that you're painting, you can visualize it quite clearly. And then over time, you will be able to, to really know it without having to check. And that's, of course, where we all want to get, where we all want to be, so that we don't have to think so much when we paint. But you have got to see it in front of you, and practice it enough, you know, checking enough. Otherwise, you may just be mixing false colors and false values, and you think they're correct, but then you get really frustrated when you see that that somehow you're off. Okay, so I'm going to finish this background up, and then we'll get to the picture. So, as you can see, I've put in a little bit suggestion of the pattern and other colors. And just a reminder to keep these videos really short and sweet. I am trying to focus on one particular topic. So I did talk quite a bit about mixing that background color, but now we need to talk about mixing the varying whites. Okay, so the first thing that we want to start to do is put in some shadow color for white. And I've already blocked in the shadow shape, as you can see here. And this is something that I've found really does kind of give people some hang-ups. My default shadow mixture is ivory black with Naples yellow. Okay, it just gives a nice neutral warm mixture, and I'm going to just block it in, you know, relatively solid throughout to begin with. Now I didn't block in, there's a little bit of cast shadow underneath the lip of this picture, a nice cast shadow on this handle as well as underneath the handle, and I can get sort of a fine edge there by twisting the brush and turning that filbert on its side. And so try not to get, I think one thing that hangs people up right away is that we see a lot of reflected light and reflected color in the shadow itself from the surrounding area. And that is something that is very important to get in, but you kind of have to do things, or at least I do things one at a time. So I know that I just kind of want to get a base value and base, kind of a base color, or in this case really, you know, a very neutral color, non-color in. And then right along the edge of this little spout is a little underplane shadow. I might actually block the whole thing in there. So I'm going to start with this, and then as I work the object, I will be putting in, you know, some of this beautiful reflective colors from the blue and from the background showing up. Now, one thing I would like to also establish is just a little darker version of this cast shadow underneath. This is really my darkest dark in the entire scene, and so I'm just using some black and some of that azure blue at the moment to establish that value. You know, and I would say too, if you're not quite sure about the color just yet on anything, just get the value accurate first. And remember from the previous lesson that you can always, you know, take a photo with your phone, turn it into black and white, and see, you know, what the actual values are. To remind you that the color that I decided on for this picture was just basically going to be a yellow to a little bit of orange yellow with a lot of white. The highlight, you know, is really going to be something more in this blue-green, just like the background with a lot of white, since I'm dealing with a cool light on a warm object. All right. So, you know, this may be a little too lemony. I'm going to go first just for the Naples yellow. And I did also mix in some liquid. I'm using liquid as my medium today. I did also mix in quite a bit of liquid into my white just to get it really creamy and fluid, so that it was a little stiff before. Okay, and then we just want to get that on there. And I always do like to have, you know, that starting lit edge a nice crisp edge. And so it is oil paint, so it's going to be really juicy and creamy, and you could kind of just get the whole thing covered up first. When I get to say where this is starting to turn underneath, close to the shadow plane, or say over here, that's when I'm going to start darkening a little bit, putting in a little bit of that shadow color and a little more Naples yellow just to transition that value a little bit, and then just barely soften over that edge. I don't want to soften it too much, but I do need a little bit softer transition there. And then right about here, I want to add a little bit more of that, anything that's in the complement, really, like in the blue, purple, anything sort of in that complementary range to the yellow and white will serve the purpose of basically desaturating that color, because here, the form is getting a little less light, turning away from the light, and so the light is diminishing on it, which is making that value drop. And again, I just barely want to just kind of tickle the edge here. And I think also be conscientious that you're not sort of pasting on the paint, so to speak, or really smoothing it out. One of the beautiful qualities of oils is just allowing that, paint to sort of have a vibrancy. And the more I can kind of lay it down, one way for something to maintain its color is to just kind of lay it down without over mixing it. And it's really, oil paint is really buildable, so you can always build on top. You can always go back and soften an edge where needed, or reshape the drawing. Now on the inside of the picture here, that's again where I'm going to use sort of that neutral, cooler color, because it's catching, less of the light, so it's really losing some of its local color, the true form of its color. Cobalt here with a lot of white to get that highlight color. My light source is top left, so I'm going to have a nice highlight on, it's slightly left of center. It's not exactly center the angle of my light. And I want to build a little more impasto there. And this is something really that starts to give it that illusion of porcelain, something that's a little more reflective. Okay, and then we also need to put in the color on the handle. Now this may actually be a little darker appearing or a little more colorful because it's a smaller form. So, a larger form is going to reflect more light back to our eye, and smaller forms reflect less light, the light actually hitting the object. So if you were to line up, a golf ball, a baseball and a soccer ball, the one that would look brightest and lightest if all whites were equal on them would be the largest ball, the soccer ball. So you could have one object that's all the same, we know it's all the same, but on the smaller forms, start to make it a little, perhaps a little bit darker, looking less lit up than the broader form. So, and this is the time where I would start to now look at things like finishing details. I've got all the big blocks in. So at the top here, we do have a top lip here, And it's kind of, it's kind of scrolly. So if you're going to take more time with this painting, you could definitely really get into all of that. Or, cutting this in to give more shape, using the background color to make that happen. And you notice too, talking again about broader, bigger versus smaller. So really constricted small areas like in here or on the handle, you notice that those are darker, that they're getting less light. So you're going to, really not get a whole lot of reflected light bouncing around in these parts of the form. And so you may even have something like a small dark accent right there on the cast shadow of the handle. And little things like that can add a lot to the picture. Okay, and then I do want to start putting in some of the reflections, which is just whatever the background color is in this case, which will help the object feel more porcelain-like, again, just more reflective. And so generally that shows up on the very back edge as this part of the form is rounding and closer to that background material. Just something kind of lighter, it's lighter in value, even a little bit of warmth here, so a little more yellow, and then that would differentiate it, make it a different color than what's behind it, separating out the form there. Okay, and then underneath, but it can't be, as light as whatever you have in the light shape. So everything in the shadow has to read as being a little bit warmer and darker, especially since we're dealing with cool lights, warm shadows. And really it shows up in between the end of the form and where the shadow begins. And pretty much to make any neutral, you can use any kind of complementary colors to achieve that. And, might just start looking for ways to introduce some of that background color along the transition as well. We also have a little bit of sort of this creamy, I don't know, it's kind of a brownish beige color. So I might use some burnt umber and Naples yellow. Just to kind of indicate some of that color change. That's, to me, it's also helpful to separate out the picture from the rest of the background. Of course, one thing you can also look to do would be just adding accents of perhaps a cool and kind of softening. Remember that purple is the opposite of the yellow, so accents of cool, and also I'm going to start using sort of a soft hair brush here just to kind of soften some of that transition into shadow so it doesn't look quite so harsh. Of course, a lot of this is easier to do whenever it's the paint has set up a little bit more. But to try to show you, what I would do if I had more time, just to get more refinement here. And for example, these lower edges, usually I want this edge to be harder up here, and then down below here, just sort of, again, just sort of tickling that edge to open that up into the adjacent plane so that it just has a stronger feeling of, atmosphere. Same thing could be done here, perhaps just, softening that in you always want whatever is in the light, I think, to be more dominating or more appealing than whatever is in the shadow. And just to kind of clean up this starting edge and sharpen that up. So this lesson in particular, mostly addressing how do you paint a warm white object. There's always other things that get covered that are crucial to painting in general, but in this case, learning how to use that color wheel to really judge the appropriate color and value, because we all know that we just can't paint it straight white most of the time and have it work, especially since the only thing that can really be lightest and brightest, let's say, would be the highlight on porcelain. So the rest of the so-called white has to have some amount of color or different value in it than the highlight. All right, and so that is that. I hope that's super helpful to you guys, and I hope that you have a wonderful studio practice this week. All right, see you next time. Bye.